We're told that the price P and the quantity X sold of a product obey what's called the demand equation, and it's given right here to us. P equal negative 1/9 X plus 400. And then after that there's this comma 0 less than or equal X less than or equal 3000. What in the world does that mean? That means that this formula is only used if your X, which again represents the number of things that you're selling, is in between 0 and 3000. Well, of course we need to sell more than 0 things, so that makes sense. And then there's also a cap on this that we know we're not going to sell more than 3,000 products. Okay, now, part A says, what is the revenue to the nearest dollar when 700 units are sold? Pay attention to the variable names. P is price. How much do we charge? X is how many things we sell. Revenue, that's the amount of money that you bring in. Well, if you're charging a price and you're selling this many of them, your revenue is going to be, let me put the answer down here so I make sure I have room, your price times the number of things that you sell, P times X. Okay, now I specifically want this for selling 700 units. So now what does that represent? X is the number of units sold. So this is going to be my X value. What am I going to do about P? I have a formula for P, and the formula again uses X, which I'm going to use 700. Now to start off, I'm just going to first get the overall formula here. If I take my formula for P, which is negative 1/9 X plus 400, I don't put this part in, that's just restrictions, it's not part of the actual equation, and then I multiply that by X. Of course, when you distribute, we get negative 1/9 X squared, negative kind of got merged in with my division sign there, plus 400 times X. Okay, now all I need to do is plug 700 into here, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it right now. So here's part A. The revenue would be negative 1/9 times 700 squared plus 400 times 700. Okay, now be careful when you punch things into your calculator. Negative 1/9, I like to put my fractions in parentheses just to make sure the calculator understands what I mean. And I'm going to multiply that by 700 squared. And then I'm going to add 400 times 700. Okay, now I wasn't told to do this, but this is revenue. I should know if I'm not told to do, oh I'm sorry, I am told. Nearest dollar, didn't read, sorry about that. Nearest dollar, okay, so I went around to nearest dollar. Otherwise, if I wasn't told, then I would definitely just cut this off to the nearest cent. But it looks like for the nearest dollar, this is going to be, let's see, 225,550. Since after the decimal it's a 5, I'm going to round that to 6. Okay, now, the next part of the problem has this keyword maximize in it. And in fact, if you look at the other two parts that follow, maximum, maximize, they all focus on maximizing this quantity for revenue, which is this equation we just got, price times the number of things we sell. Maximum revenue, maximize revenue, maximize revenue. Okay, now, there's a few ways that we can go about finding this information. My first recognition is, aha, this is a quadratic equation because I've got the variable squared. Okay, now I do have a formula for finding the vertex, which gives us maximums of a quadratic. Notice that the negative leading coefficient means the quadratic or the parabola graph is going to open down, so that's going to be my maximum at the vertex. I can use that formula, which is x equal negative b over 2a, but I've got kind of a funky number here with a fraction. So I think instead I'm going to go about using my graphing calculator to solve this for me. So when I do that, I need to put this formula into the calculator. Again, I like to be careful and put my parentheses in fractions. Now you may have the version of the calculator that shows you this in fraction form. Mine does not. X squared, it might also show the exponent, mine does not, so depending on which version you have it may look a little different when you type this in. 400 times x. Okay, now always an issue with putting things on the graphing calculator is finding the right window. Notice that's where this restriction comes in. They are telling me use these boundaries for your X. So I'm going to go to Window, which looks like it was set up on the standard window, -10 to 10. And I'm going to put in my X's, go from 0 to 3000. Scale, you can leave it as 1 as you want to, but I don't want to see 3000 tick marks, so I'm going to put one every, we'll just say 500 places. And for now, let's go ahead and leave the Y's where they were. Not a very good graph. I don't see anything. Now there's a few things you can do to help you sort through how to find the graph. Some of you may have learned to use the table feature. That certainly will work. I usually don't use the table feature. What I'll do is I just hit trace. That gives me a specific point on the graph, and it tells me that when my X is 1500, which is just the point it put it at, my Y's are all the way up at 350,000. No wonder I can't see it, because I'm only going -10 to 10. And I can even move around and watch my Y values. And they seem to be hovering right around that 350,000 area. Okay, now, I also could have used what I had for the previous answer. My previous answer, when I sell 700 things, which is definitely in this range, I'm up to 225,000. So I knew it should be fairly high. Okay, I'm going to use that and some more reasoning to adjust my window on my Y values. So let's see, 225,000 here, I got 300,000 some when I just did trace. I like to give myself space, so I'm going to go up to 500,000. The other reasoning I can use is this represents my revenue, how much money I'm bringing in. I'm not going to bring in negative money, so that should start at 0. Now again, your scale, you can change it if you want to, you certainly don't have to. I'm going to put a tick mark every 10,000 spots. Yeah, maybe I do. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so now let's see if we can see the graph. Aha! Now I've got a good picture. If you solve something on your calculator, you want to make sure to draw a rough sketch of what you're seeing. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something that shows us here's what I used. And then also indicate here's the key value that I'm after, the maximum, the vertex. So to find that on the calculator, second trace gets us to the calc menu. Option number 4 is maximum. So left bound, move to the left of the vertex, which we happen to already be there. Right bound, move over to the right of the vertex. No rhyme or reason as to how far you move, just make sure you're over to the right. And then guess, move as close as you can. Don't have to take a lot of time with it, just get close. Aha, now, here's the value that the calculator is giving me. You can use some reasoning here to think through, aha, I bet that this calculator is having a little rounding issue, and that's probably supposed to be right at 1800. The other thing is, even if this is the actual answer, what does X represent? It's the number of things we're selling. We're not going to sell 0.9998 of a product. Okay, so this should definitely be a whole number. The value that I'm getting here for my vertex then is 1800 for the X. And looks like my Y value is 360,000. Okay, that's not the answer to the problem, but it's going to help me find the answer to the problem. We got to look back and see what's asked. What quantity X should be sold to maximize revenue? X, the X value. So I should sell 1,800 units, products, whatever you want to say. I'll just say units. And let me circle that because there's my answer. Now what about part C? What is the maximum revenue? Okay, now what is it that we graphed here? We graphed this equation. X is what we sell, and the Y value was revenue. So this is my revenue. The max revenue, and again that should be money, $360,000. Okay, now the last part. What price? I've already used both these numbers. How do I get price? Couple of different ways you can do that. One, you can go back to the formula that was given to you. Here is the formula for price. Oops, sorry, let me show you. Here's the formula for price. I now know the X value is 1,800 if I want the max. So I can get my price by taking negative 1/9 times 1800 plus 400. Negative 1/9 times 1800 plus 400, 200. And this is price, so that's in dollars. That's how much I should sell. Or sell this for. That's the price I should charge. Now, the other way I could do it, I could go back to this relationship. Revenue, again, is found by taking price times the number of things you sold. We know the revenue. That should be my price times the number of things I should sell, which we also know is 1800. And if I do the division, voila, what do you know? Same answer, 200. So either way you can use to get the price, but you've got to keep in mind that you cannot get it directly from one of these coordinates. This is the number of things you sold, this is the revenue, this is asking for price. So it takes some calculation to find it.